What you're looking at is a chart of the total number of times Nickelodeon shows aired in 2025. Not counting the preschool stuff, or the shows that they're borrowing from other places, you have something that spells out the grim state of a studio and network that should be thriving. Airing the least amount of times is Max in the Midnights, who hasn't made a whopping 3 appearances on cable. Young Dylan aired 12 times. I don't know what that is. Rock, Paper, Scissors aired 18 times. I kinda know what that is. The Loud House, the only show that's truly been able to contend with SpongeBob's longevity, only aired 29 times. Wild Pack aired 31 times and premiered that year. That feels kinda low for a new show. Thundermint Undercover aired 40 times and is currently their only live-action production aside from the upcoming Victoria spinoff. We used to be a society, dude. The Patrick Star Show, the second SpongeBob spinoff, aired 129 times. That's a jump, but that's not even enough airings to air once per day for half of the year. And finally, the Mac Daddy of them all, SpongeBob SquarePants, aired a casual 2,276.5 times in 2025. Yeah, just complete and utter domination of the schedule. You may be thinking that SpongeBob hogging the schedule isn't anything new, but I think it highlights how Nickelodeon is actually regressing, falling back into old habits after it seemed like the 2020s could be a turning point for their brand. It felt like they were embracing SpongeBob, but still champion new ideas while also introducing their legacy toons to a new generation. So how'd that fall apart? To figure it out, we need to talk about Nickelodeon's commitment issues. Ever since SpongeBob came on the scene, it quickly became Nickelodeon's favorite child, and it wasn't hard to see why. Insane viewership aside, the show was just great and a breath of fresh air. It managed to consistently stick out from the rest of Nickelodeon's catalog, especially the shows that came after it. A lot of early Nicktoons starred funky little guys, usually animals. But I think Hey Arnold's success and longevity caused them to lean more into shows that used humans and school as a base. I'm just another kid that goes to school, but I got fairy godparents, or I'm super smart, or I'm a teenage robot, I got ghost powers, the list goes on. The Bob was able to stand out thanks to its unique setting, cast, and tone. It's underwater, they're sea creatures, but the main character is a sponge. Instead of going to school, he's a fry cook at a fast food joint. Characters are 20 to 30s coded, but SpongeBob has this childlike wonder that makes him relatable to all ages. And boating school was the closest we got to SpongeBob having to hit the books. And those were far removed from your conventional school episode. But here's the deal. While I think most networks are aware that they have one big thing that draws the largest crowd, and they can capitalize on that to fund other projects that won't have as large of an audience, but still appealing to some viewers who like the flagship show, and in a perfect world, these projects would attract a different audience from the big thing anyways, growing the overall channel numbers. Variety is the spice of life. Diversifying tends to work out. Look at Disney in 05. They greenlit Zack and Cody and American Dragon so more boys would tune in, and as one of those boys, I can vouch that it worked. They could have just went all in on what was currently working, but they took risks that paid off in the long run. Nickelodeon doesn't really see things that way. After a couple years, they started viewing SpongeBob's success as the standard and not the ceiling, which is whack. When I was a kid, SpongeBob just felt like a pillar of the network, but not necessarily the main event. I'd catch plenty of SpongeBob, but I'd also catch plenty of other shows on the schedule, and it felt like every show would get at least 1 hour-long special premiering on a Friday night. It felt like they were confident in everything. But around 2007, 2008, it felt like the era I grew up in suddenly died. Shows ending one after another. Bam, there goes Jimmy. Oh, see you later, Danny. I don't even know what happened to Teenage Robot. All that remained was a square-shaped Grim Reaper. There are a lot of factors to these shows dying. Jimmy Neutron's production company shut down. Danny Phantom was apparently really expensive and they kept going over budget. Yet despite all this, it was clear Nickelodeon was still heading in a direction where they just wanted a hit on par with SpongeBob. Butch Hartman talked about this years ago in a video discussing the many cancellations of Fairly Odd Parents. Nickelodeon would recognize that the show had good numbers, but it just wasn't on par with the Sponge, so they would pull the plug before changing their mind. And this became a cycle that Nickelodeon is infamous for. A new show comes out, it doesn't get that much promotion, and when it's not as popular as SpongeBob, it gets canceled and banished to Nicktoons where the rest of the episodes get burned off. Of course, some shows managed to evade total death. The Legend of Korra managed to tell its whole story over 4 seasons. Granted, it got treated poorly and was ultimately pushed off TV during Book 3. The Loud House came out and was a hit, lasting 11 seasons, getting spin-offs and movies. Though it seems like it might be finally heading out the door. anymore, which isn't really a big deal since it lasted over a decade, but it still makes you wonder if Nickelodeon thinks it's no longer profitable. I think the lack of flagship titles beyond Bob and Loud House started to bite Nick in the ass during the mid-2010s, as years of shows getting neglected led to less interest in any of the new ones. I'm happy to see that they haven't completely given up on some of their new shows, as Rock, Paper, Scissors apparently has a third season on the way, along with Max and the Midnights, but the latter has episodes premiering on Nicktoons in the middle of the night, which is sad because this show looks awesome. How could you deprive kids of something this rad? Now, a lot of companies have said, hey, if we can't make anything new stick, why not turn to the classics? This is where Nickelodeon had the head start, only to fumble the bag hard while the likes of Cartoon Network and Disney are seeing great success. Which brings me to the failed nostalgia era.
What we do here is go back.
Need something to throw on while you draw, study, or sleep? Roundtable Rewind's got you covered. So why not take a stroll down memory lane and subscribe?
No one can tell me what to do.
See you there. Between the big three that is Nick, Cartoon Network, and Disney, Nick was the first to get proactive with nostalgia, starting small with the 90s Are All That block on the Teen Nick channel, before going all in with new animated specials based off a few of their hits from the 90s and 2000s. We had the long-awaited Hey Arnold the Jungle Movie, Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling, and Invader Zim Enter the Florpists. While Rocko just seemed to be a special for old time's sake, Arnold and Zim specials were a little more than a reunion. They were both testing the waters for a bigger comeback, yet Nick really didn't do much to support them. The Jungle Movie amassed over 1.5 million viewers in 2017. A lot of people were pivoting to streaming. So it was great that this movie, based off a show that's been off the air for years, was able to pull an audience of this size. Yet it wasn't enough for Nickelodeon. So despite the creators having an interest in creating a revival season, this currently remains the end of Hey Arnold, which honestly, I think is fine. But apparently, Nickelodeon wasn't really impressed with the performance of the Jungle Movie, but like, come on dog. It's not like y'all were rerunning the show on the main network leading up to the Jungle Movie. Were you just hoping millions of grown-ass adults would become aware of this film's existence and tune in all at the same time? That's not how that works if you don't even promote it. I only knew because I'm a fucking nerd. I honestly think these numbers could have justified a continuation or at least another movie, but hey, at least they were able to get this one. But you also know they're probably comparing it to whatever SpongeBob special last premiered on the network. Enter the Florpists made some waves on Netflix when it came out, but the original series wasn't available on the platform, and Invader Zim already wasn't their biggest hit, so I wouldn't be surprised if the numbers were just fine. But again, they did nothing for newcomers. And a lot of people I know who grew up watching Nickelodeon and aren't super in loop with animation news are usually shocked when I tell them, yeah, all these specials have been on Netflix for years. Whether if it was the fault of Nick or Netflix, the hype around these specials just felt half-hearted. Like, yeah, if you care, you'll find this eventually. Otherwise, we're just gonna focus on Loud House and the Sponge. There's the Rugrats revival in 2021, which streamed on Paramount Plus and aired on television. And I don't know if they were expecting immediate success with the new generation, or once again, the numbers were good, just not SpongeBob level, but they ended up burying this revival. It's practically been scrubbed from existence, as it was removed from streaming in 2024, and hasn't been shown on TV since, despite there being a fully produced third season, which again, screams impatience to me. Yeah, we have more episodes, but it's just not the insane moneymaker we want it to be, so we won't even give it another chance to get there. Like, what the hell is the point then? Fairly Odd Parents had to come back in 2024 with a new wish, a series that ended up taking the internet by storm, a show I started covering after Poof, aka Perry, was reintroduced. I quickly discovered there was a large audience invested in the sequel, curious to see all the returning characters all grown up, and even getting invested in Hazel, yet they really had no way to watch it beyond clips on YouTube and my breakdowns. Because for some reason, they decided to air the entire season on television, then drop it on Netflix in parts, with a renewal depending on their performance on Netflix. And despite both parts performing well, getting in the kids' top 10 both times, Nickelodeon apparently just left them on red. They gotta focus on the Sponge. And even when they had the data to back up that this was worth investing in, that if they kept it going, its audience would only continue to grow, they still shrugged their shoulders and said, too much work. Now, to be fair, this also seems to be influenced by a change in leadership, according to Lindsay Katai, the showrunner of A New Wish, as after the Skydance merger, the head of Nickelodeon got replaced, and his replacements canceled the Tales of the TMNT, despite Katai and presumably other crewmates having 9 months left on their contract. But that also tells me that whoever's in charge looked at all these shows and just said,
time, I want the sponge.
Once again keeping this cycle going. It bums me out because it feels like we should be in a world where Nickelodeon has plenty of new shows popping off alongside new renditions of their legacy titles. Not to overglaze relying on popular IP, but the new Rugrats should have been on season 5 by now. A new one should be on season 2 with a season 3 on the way. We should be seeing a serialized Danny Phantom, and the closest thing we got, the books, aren't promoted all that well by Nick. Instead, we're in the spot that we've been in for nearly 20 years, where the only thing that's guaranteed to survive is SpongeBob. And you know, all the preschool stuff. What also makes this depressing is looking at other Paramount cartoons like Beavis and Butthead. That revival started out on Paramount Plus. Then it got moved to cable with season 3, which found a whole new audience, and now we have a weird Beavis and Butthead resurgence that I kind of love. And I'm sure part of that success is nostalgia. It appeals to all the adults still tuning into South Park, but also grabbing the attention of teenagers who watch South Park and are now getting introduced to Beavis for the first time. And that's not one-to-one with Nick, but look at it this way. SpongeBob as it is right now mainly appeals to kids, and I imagine that the folks watching TV with their kids who grew up with SpongeBob will probably watch some new episodes with them. If those same adults then saw Fairly Odd Parents or Rugrats or some other revival of their childhood come on after, they might want to check it out with their kid, who then gets into that franchise as a result. But you can't have any of that if all of it dies after a season or two. To be honest, all of this really makes me concerned for Avatar. It's been 6 years since the big Avatar renaissance in 2020, and Nickelodeon has taken way too long to capitalize on it. That's been 6 years since Avatar popped off with no meaningful new content beyond the Netflix remake. The Legend of Aang movie got delayed and then ultimately lost its theatrical release, which might have been due to the initial underperformance of the Search for SquarePants movie, as the Avatar announcement was made after headlines about SpongeBob flopping surfaced. Maybe they're moving it to streaming just to net some subscriptions on Paramount Plus. Either way, I think it shows a huge lack of confidence in the film. Movies are events. They're supposed to be money makers. When one pops off in theaters, it becomes a part of the conversation for a while. Streaming films don't have that kind of staying power for a lot of reasons. The movie-going experience is just way more memorable. Maybe you're getting some friends together. Maybe it's a whole night out with the family. It's exciting to trek to the theater, get your snacks and popcorn, sit through the trailers, and finally getting hit with that Nicole Kidman before getting whisked away to another world. A world that demands your full attention. Streaming movies are being half-watched while someone scrolls on their phone. It's confident for studios to put their dick on the table, put a film in theaters and say, yeah, this is worth the price of admission. I look at them putting The Legend of Aang on Paramount Plus, and it feels like they're saying, yeah, this is worth their free trial that you might forget to cancel. It's not even the same thing like a streaming show, where Paramount tends to release episodes weekly and thus give people a reason to stay subscribed, as they're actively engaging with the platform, coming back week after week. If you sign up to Paramount just for this movie, you might check out some other shows, but if you're only interested in the new stuff, you're going to get bored and bail quickly. I don't want Avatar to get caught up in that, and even with the excuse of, oh, they just want to grow Paramount Plus, they can still do that by only putting the movie on Paramount Plus after it runs in theater. Seven Havens is allegedly premiering in 2027. That's 7 years for people to get their hands on the next Avatar show after it blew up in 2020. That is simply too long. And the worst part is, they're practically sitting on it. They're clearly just waiting for the movie to launch first, but they've been working on the show all this time. There's no reason why they couldn't just start airing it like right now. The only real positive to this is that the breaks in between seasons should be significantly smaller, but I'm scared that because the hype won't be as big as it could have been for Seven Havens, and the movies being set up to not have much staying power, Nick will look at these two projects from Avatar Studios and deem the whole thing a failed experiment, scrapping it to put more resources into the Sponge and preschool programming. I hope I'm wrong, but again, when it comes to the main channel, it seems like Nickelodeon still only wants to commit to SpongeBob. Anything else? And they might give it some love at first, maybe a couple of seasons, but it all ends the same, airing in a graveyard slot on Nicktoons. But as always, these are just my thoughts and I want to hear yours. How do you feel about the state of Nickelodeon? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and keep the conversation going over on Twitter and Instagram at OptricVox and at Roundtable Vids. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe to the Roundtable with notifications on so you never miss a video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace!